Boom. Mute. You made it. We are here. We're doing amazing as a society. I'm super excited, and I'm believing that hopefully in the next 30 days we can start to begin to step into what the new normal of life looks like. But regardless of all of that, you're here. The sunshine, vitamin D is coming into our bodies. If it's sunny wherever you are, welcome to this video. I dive into some fun conversations remotely with my brother-in-law, Griffin Ginta. If you don't know him, I'm excited for you to meet him. So without further ado, let's get into this bad boy.
Where I just like come out,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Hey, come on down. Griffin, get down.
hey, got my name right. Most people don't.
Okay, so for the people that don't know you, Griffin, you are a teacher
Yes.
and a genius when it comes to English, the English language.
I don't know about a genius. I try my
Okay.
best.
Okay.
I can put sentences together.
Very well. Well, you have a blog, you've been doing those little chapters on Instagram about your book, right?
Yeah. So I originally wanted to write a book about my life, which at
Yeah.
the time, I think I was 22 when I thought of that idea. It's
Crazy.
kind of silly to write an autobiography when I've lived such a short amount of life on Earth.
Sure.
But at the same time, I felt like I had a cool story to tell. And
Yeah.
after going through a series of weird hoops, including emailing Bob Goff, who actually got back to me, I decided it was better to do it online for right now. I'm not a celebrity yet, so I don't have
snap.
that. I know. I don't have that instant clout to just be able to stamp my face on a book and
Right.
throw it in the bookstore. But I felt like starting online, even if nobody read it, it would give a chance to build up my portfolio and also be more motivating to me.
Yeah.
So I feel like once you make the first step of buying the website, starting up the blog, even if nobody reads it, you're like, well, I don't want to waste $20 a month. So
Right.
yeah.
Interesting. And how has that been? Because I feel like you've done quite a few posts, right? Haven't you, on Instagram? Kind of little blurbs of your book.
I have. I think I've done about 6 so far that I've featured
Really?
on Instagram. And the hope was that in our culture where nobody wants to read anything that's longer than a few sentences, that people would read a couple sentences and be intrigued enough to keep going. But that if they didn't, it was okay, because I felt like I highlighted the heart of what I was trying to say in those posts. And then if they wanted to read more, they could.
For the sake of talking about something everyone's talked about, when we were texting earlier, you brought it up about basically what are we doing in isolation and having to be with all this Corona stuff. I think though it's worth talking about because, well, I'm just not involved in all the social media and everything else. I'm sure there's lots of people talking about it, but I'm curious your perspective on this. To me, it's like, I get it. It can affect the economy and all that kind of stuff. But on one hand, so many beautiful things have been created throughout the years of humanity because of isolations. And on the other hand, it's kind of like you get this free time to think, be with Jesus, to make, I don't know, there's so many opportunities. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts about that. Instead of all the doom and gloom and sad stuff.
Yeah, I'm with you. I see obviously the suffering and pain that people are going through, my heart goes out to them. But as far as a what to do in the meantime level, there's a lot of positives that can come out of it. First of all, I think that people are going to spend more time with their families already. I feel like I've talked to you and I've talked to, extended family that I don't normally get to even call. I mean, which is lame that it takes a catastrophe to me to call them, But yeah, there's a lot of fruit that I think is being produced throughout all of this. The first thing is this global forced shutdown where whether people like it or not, they basically have to Sabbath. They basically have to rest and slow down their pace. And what's crazy is so many people have been saying this for the last couple of years. we're overtaxed as a society as far as time or things to do, or there's this perceived idea that we constantly have to be moving.
Totally.
And now I feel like God's like, nope, you have to be still and be in the moment because there's nothing else you can do. So
totally.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to go to counseling and kind of go down that road? Because I know it comes with, like anything, there's good chiropractors, there's bad chiropractors. There's a reason for, there's people who kind of, I don't know, there's Christians that make people hate Christians and vice versa. So what made you decide to actually dive into that whole world?
Well, I actually talk about this a little bit on my blog. And I remember in college, I had a really rough time adjusting to college. And I went to this on-campus therapist who, he had good intentions, but he basically told me to just reduce the amount of sad that I was every day. And I was like, what does that even mean?
Super helpful, man.
Well, thank you. I'll try to be like 10% sad today. But then as I moved out here, obviously was experiencing a lot of changes. And so I teetered with the idea of like, maybe I should go to counseling when I get there, but I didn't know anybody and I've never had a positive counseling experience before going to Tammy. And then in talking with you and Haley and other people who have seen Tammy, I'd heard really glowing reviews of just how in touch she was, but that she wasn't going to be the counselor that told me to be 5% less sad today. She would actually give me real tangible ideas and solutions and process with me to actually grow into the person I want to become.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I honestly was really resistant to it, partially because of bad experiences and partly because I didn't think I needed it. Silly retroactively thinking about it because I can't imagine a world without it today. But it was easy to associate it with all the negative stereotypes that you hear, like, oh, it's for crazy people, or I'm not mentally ill, so I don't need it. But in a lot of ways, I was sick, so to speak, in terms of the way that the patterns that I was doing and the thoughts and behaviors I was exhibiting. So.
Well, and no one teaches you. You're just supposed to know how to operate and all that kind of stuff. Because I feel like, I mean, even growing up in church, like the Bible is incredible, but without the Holy Spirit, it's a book that clearly, like without my desire and relationship with Him, like it's so just a book. Like it requires both ways. So I feel like it's amazing to have. Also, God gave us people. So grateful He did that. It's not just alone. I was thinking about like Enoch. Was it Enoch? And he had like God took him out for like 13 years and he just learned alone. Yeah. I was like, bro, that blew my mind the other day. It was like 13 years in isolation. Like, how do you not go crazy? But if you're with God, then clearly you're not going to go crazy.
Yeah, those are 2-week ban out of the water for sure.
Dude, yeah, that's nothing. In the desert, in the middle of nowhere.
Brutal.
But I think it's also so cool when you have counseling. Obviously, that we've both seen Tammy, and so we know she's such a gift. And I feel like the difference for me and having her as a tool is, I feel like, in my perspective, she points you to Jesus. It's not just like work harder, do more. It's like, hey, you can be free from this. Like, did you ever know like there's another way to live? And I feel like that's what Jesus did. He came to like break off the old stuff and was like, hey, there's a better way to do this. And I feel like that to me, what was so profound about going to counseling. And I mean, clearly, even in the life of Jesus, like everyone hated him because he was like being so truthful in a very different way. With Tammy, it's like, I feel like God's given her this ability to kind of like speak truth and stuff that's not very popular because we were just like, I was told like, you just grin and bear it or like just deal with it or just, we don't really like this person. So we just kind of smile and make it, be as kind as possible and then move on instead of like actually addressing this stuff. And so I feel like that's so cool that you're willing to be uncomfortable because that's really what it is. Like, I feel like getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because it seems like the more you do that, the more you can start to step into not caring what people think. Like that's what Jesus did. He didn't care what people think. It didn't affect how he still communicated what he needed to.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like so many truths in the Bible predate like modern psychology and sociology, but it's so interesting how people think it's this revolutionary new idea. Like Brene Brown wrote a book about being vulnerable, and like woohoo, Brene Brown, like she's cool. But Jesus was saying that 2,000 years ago, like truth will set you free, you know? So
freaking good, man.
Yeah.
But the thing that's the thing that I don't know what to do with is we've talked about this. I lived my whole entire life reading the Bible and being like, wow, this is a great, cool story. And it wasn't until I feel like God kind of like graciously pulled me out of the matrix per se and like asked me to start living by faith. And I decided to go like, just like I would with another person. Like I chose to pursue my wife. Like I chose to go, okay, Holy Spirit, you're real. I want to know you. And that to me was because he started calling me and I decided to say yes. And it's like revolutionized my life, because then it wasn't a book anymore. It was like his life pouring into me and becoming real. And the thing that's so hard for me with that is I don't know what to do, because I want to be like, everybody, like, this is the best. Like, if it's a good movie, or if it's good food or whatever, like, that's my MO. Like, you need to try this. But even Jesus talked about, or somewhere in the Bible talked about, basically, like, you have this revelation, but if someone else doesn't, it's going to fall on deaf ears, essentially. Like, what I've been struggling with, like, God, what do I do with this other than, like, just love people? Because in my heart is like, but if you knew this truth, it will set you free from yourself.
Yeah.
And, anyways, your take.
No, it's like seeing somebody you love drinking poison, and you're like, dude, please stop drinking the poison. And they're like, I'm good. And you can't stop them unless they come to that realization themselves, because otherwise, you know, they won't ingrain the habit into themselves. They'll just be doing it for you. And then
totally,
it's so hard, because you love them and you want the best for them. And it's not out of a sense of like, I'm right, you're wrong. It's out of a sense of, I love you and I love you enough to tell you. And so often I think that accountability is missing in friendships or relationships where nobody wants to offend. So they see somebody drinking poison and they're like, well, I wouldn't want them to think that I was a bad friend by offending them. And you're like, no, you're being a bad friend by not telling them they're drinking poison. So it's a tricky battle, because, you know, like you said, they have to come to that realization themselves, if that's even something they want to do.
Right.
But that's cool that you've been on that journey of seeing the fruits of living it out, because you can soak in all the counseling, all the theory you want, but if you don't live it out, then it's just more noise.
100%. Well, I feel like, I mean, it seems as though it is a sheer grace of God to go, okay, I don't know what it is. I'm not speaking for him, but like, to me, it felt like, okay, like your time is now. Like, we're doing this thing. Whether it's like, hey, I've been calling you since you were born, or like, and I finally am listening, or whatever. But I feel like it's so profound when that starts to happen, and because it's life and life more abundantly, it starts to completely and totally transform me or anyone doing it. But I feel like the other thing that's so going back to what you said a minute ago, like you can't force someone, like you can tell them, hey, it's poison, or maybe not, but it's their choice. But how profound it is. I was thinking about, like, the Bible was talking about, like, how do you make a bad tree good? Or how do you make a bad tree stop bearing bad fruit, essentially, and bear good fruit? And as you make the tree good. And so, like, it's so simple, but for me, it finally was like, oh my gosh, that's it. Like, in here changes. So what's ironically, I think in very small ways, from other people's mouths telling me, like, oh, hey, like, what do you, basically asking, like, why are you changing? And like, when you grow, as a kid, I don't realize that you're growing. And what's so cool is I realized, like, as I was reading, like, God was like, oh, it's because I'm changing you. Like, I made the tree, I'm making this tree good, and it's just a byproduct to bear good fruit. And instead of having to force someone to eat the fruit, market the fruit, like, it's just when someone hangs out with you, eventually they try it and they go, what the heck? Like, why are you not getting mad at that? Or like, or whatever it is. And I feel like that to me is, it's such a cool thing that God kind of built in there. Like, if you're willing to go on this journey with him, he starts to make you good. And all of a sudden you become, I think people start to taste it and go, wow, I want that. And it sure beats the old, like, you need to change, blah, blah, because clearly I feel like that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's so good, man. Yeah, it's sort of like when you're at a concert and you're the only one, like, pumping your fist and you're doing your thing because you're so stoked to be there and you don't care if anybody else pumps their fist, but then other people start jumping up and down. And it's not because you shook them and forced them to. It's they saw your example and they're like, I want to be like that. Why is that guy so happy?
Bro. It's like you're the first person to start a slow clap.
Yeah.
Like at first everyone's like, no. And then everyone's like so pumped that you did it. They're like cheering you on because you had enough guts to like just do it and not care what someone thought.
Yeah. And it takes guts too.
Dude.
Just like I was saying earlier about having those vulnerable conversations. It's hard. Like I struggle with that sometimes too.
Dude, yeah.
I don't want to offend. I don't want to hurt. But at the same time, when you just start living it out, it starts to come a little bit easier, and it feels less like you're reading a manual and more like you're just breathing, and it's just a natural byproduct.
And it's so profound because to me, that's love. Like it's love being like, okay, I'm going to be vulnerable and take a chance. May not even say this perfect, but I'm going to step out and say something to you instead of letting this just happen. Like someone did it to me and was willing to love me enough to like talk to me about something. And then I had the choice to change or not. But like, I feel like that is what Jesus did. Like came out like, even though I was undeserving of it, maybe I was offending someone. I mean, he did it with Paul. I mean, he knocked him off a donkey, but still like he reached out and basically was like, look, and the other thing I wanted to pair with that, which is so profound to me, is I said it earlier, he like never once did he let how someone's face or their opinion or what they said or didn't say back to him deter or affect what he had to say. That to me is so profound because I spent my whole life and I'm learning how to not, but like looking at someone, like I said to you, I think like last week, depending on like I'm judging if their facial expressions are like, if I'm reading them well and if everything seems like it's going, then great, then awesome, we'll continue. But if I think it's not going good, then I won't. Like in how unaffected and unfazed the Bible just basically is like, don't even do that. Just communicate the truth and the truth's going to set someone free. And I feel like that is the opposite of what I was taught my whole entire life is like be a people pleaser or just be little goody two shoes and just, you know, keep your little area clean and that's it.
Yeah, we have a lot of similarities there, man. I felt the same way and I still feel the same way a lot of the times where I'll feel convicted about something and want to do it. But if it gets an initial negative reaction, I start to doubt, even if it's something I feel like God clearly put on my heart. I start to like back away a little bit. And I felt like that was a taught thing because I was always taught to be very polite, which is great in so many circumstances. But when it's a life or death issue or like a really important thing, I don't want to be so preoccupied with thumbs up or thumbs down because Jesus wasn't. And certainly with Paul, like Paul was persecuted for what he was doing, but he was like, yeah, I'm going to rot in a jail cell because this is so important to know.
Wow. That's so profound. And it's like the classic example, like that is a salmon, the fish swimming upstream the opposite direction. And it is so unpopular, but I feel like it's I feel like, and it seems as though when you start to do it, you understand what is so profound about it because it's truth and it's life. It's the life of Jesus, like Ephesians, being released deep inside of you. And like you're being changed and it's like a byproduct. I don't feel like it's like someone like championing, all right, I'm going to work really hard and run up the stream. It's like, bro, you catch yourself. Wait, what am I doing? Like, I can't help myself. I have to. Like, I feel like that to me seems more along the lines of what I see in the life of Jesus. It wasn't like him like willing himself to go do these things. It's out of this immense love that's so much greater than my human love that like propelled him to do all this stuff. And then I feel like as I can get a little bit and you like we learn and grow and he starts to teach us and it's like it's just a byproduct. Well, of course I need to speak to this person because they need this. And it's like we talked about, like my job is just to do this. This is information that you need. Yeah. And this information is not connected to me. It's just I'm just passing it along. And I feel like you kind of mentioned this too. Like I've spent most of my life going like, here you go, and then being so offended if they didn't like it because it was like, this is my sweet little thing, and how profound it is to like, that's not connected to me. You just need to have this, so here you go. Yeah, I feel like it's a big deal, and I feel like you kind of mentioned that like a week or two ago, and like learning about that.
Yeah, I have been a lot. I feel like especially recently, and one thing I was remembering as you said that, as we approached the Easter season, is that when Jesus was about to die, he's like, "It is finished." He didn't say like, "Oh, I had a few more things on my bucket list that I wanted to do, but it's okay." You know, he said it's finished, and he came with a mission and a purpose. And there are times when he had to go into the wilderness, or he had to like go by a crowd of people, because he wasn't there to just be everybody's like favorite guy or the guy that always did the socially right thing. He was like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. So yeah, I feel like you're living with that same urgency too.
Yeah, man. I feel like, but that what you're saying is just, I'm not trying to interrupt. It's just so profound what you're saying. Like, it's just, the crazy thing is it's so profound, and for some reason it just breezes over my head and my heart for all of my life. Like the fact that Jesus could just go do that, be like, well, this can't affect me. This is not a part of the equation, is insane. Because I was just thinking, like, imagine Jesus, if he did what I did my whole life, like, I shouldn't say that, that's uncomfortable. Like, it just wouldn't be a thing. There would be no Bible. It'd be like a 1-page document.
Yeah, man. I was thinking about that too. Like when the Roman soldiers came to get him, if he was like, I surrender, I renounce everything, I didn't do it, you know. And that was the reaction of all of his disciples, where they were like, I don't know that guy. But then he was so fully committed to it. And obviously he's like Son of God, Savior of the world. So sometimes I'm like, I should give myself a break. But at the same time, I'm like, no, I shouldn't give myself a break, because
come on, man.
That's who I'm apprenticing. That's who I want to be like.
Yes. Well, and either he's a liar or he's telling the truth when he's like, look, greater things than these you're going to do. And to me, the only way the greater part actually can happen is when Ephesians 3 and all the other verses kind of like become reality. Like, and the irony of all of those things are like, I pray that God would unveil within you, like that you would receive Matthew 6, like you would receive, stop getting, of the Message paraphrase, like stop being so preoccupied or focused on getting and respond from and receive from God's giving, basically. Like that to me is what's so profound, because I know my desire is to just go do the 12 steps, dude. Tell me what the program is. I will crush it. And I will be so good at it. And I know you do the same thing. But it's so hard when it's like, okay, just receive, man. Believe. Have faith and believe. And out of that believing, trusting and God changing. And then out of that, it's just a byproduct. The greater things become out of that relationship, instead of, I did the 12 things. I did the right stuff. Okay, now let's go crush it.
Yeah, receiving is so hard for me, man. Especially as a gift giver, as like one of my love languages. Like I love, oh, here you go, man. I picked you up an extra like soda or whatever it is.
Right.
I don't drink soda, so I don't know how to use that.
Dude.
So much soda. But that mindset, that it almost makes it hard for you to then get gifts, because you're so used to just taking the responsibility in your own hands. And in a lot of ways, it is a control thing, where if I can be the planner, then nothing's going to go wrong. But if I have to leave it in somebody else's hands, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I trust their plan fully. But when it's God, it's like amplified that much more. Oh, yeah.
The last thing I want to talk about, and then we can shut this thing down, even though it feels like it's been just like 5 minutes, is was just thinking, I'm not trying to quote all the scriptures, but I just keep coming to my mind about like, basically like the famous Ephesians 2:8 or 9, or what is it, where basically salvation is a gift, because it is man's tendency to boast in our ability, and it's like that is our knee jerk without Jesus, and or Romans 4, where it's like, if you're a hard worker, basically you do a really good job, we don't call your wages a gift. But if you see that there's something so big, like you couldn't do it no matter how hard you try, but you trust God to do it for you, that's what gets you set right. Like this profound opposite of all of humanity, all of societies. Like society is, you work really hard, and God is like, you just step on this giant leap this giant limb and trust me and believe what I'm saying for you, me individually and you individually, have faith, bam, done.
Man.
Like, that's crazy to me.
It is crazy. It's crazy. I mean, so many things are so countercultural. I'm thinking of the story. I don't know what chapter it's in, but Jesus tells the story of this guy who gets a bunch of money and then he just buries it in the ground. And he's like,
dude, yes.
Look, I'm such a good saver. And he's like, no, man, no, like, that's not what you do. But I feel like that's so much of society's mindset where it's like, just rack up as much stuff as you can, bury it. And then Jesus is like, no, but your treasure's in heaven. So why don't you just give up everything and follow me? And they're like, wow, I'm good.
It's so true because it's so hard because of what you just said. It's what we're taught.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if we do what, I'll take it back. Let's take in that passage, for example. Mm-hmm. If we were to, like, you follow that and that's, feel like, let's say God, I feel like God speaks that to me, or you to you, whatever. You would be considered a crazy person.
Mm-hmm.
Like, most of the people, friends and family would be like, hey, yeah, he's kind of lost it. He's doing all the weird stuff. Like, basically, he'll come back and realize that he's losing his mind. Or, and even though when Jesus is like, hey, this is what I want you to do, it's like, either you have to have crazy confidence and assurance from God, or I think it's nearly impossible to step out and do something without him because it seems crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, coming full circle, we were talking about counseling. You mentioned that without the move towards Jesus and him healing the inner wounds of your heart, it's always going to be a perpetual cycle without him. And without that trust component, you can take any story in the Bible, really. And if you take God out of the equation, it's just a crazy person running around doing stuff. So
that's so good, man.
Yeah.
Okay, last little bit. So we kind of started talking about at the very beginning about this whole COVID stuff and living, what that looks like. Do you have any thoughts you want to share about that?
Yeah, I was thinking about it from a community level, and it's been cool to be able to watch churches adapt and support other churches in this. And, you know, even churches that historically have never had technology are finding ways to connect with people online and keep the spirits high and the morale up. But it can also be really hard to not have that communal gathering where you see people, and there's something about like worshiping with people that is just so powerful in a group setting.
Yes.
But at the same time, it can be a cool way, like I said at the beginning, to connect with people you haven't in a long time. And I was thinking about if this happened in 1875, we'd all just have to write letters to each other or, letters. I don't know. But yeah, it's just interesting thinking about how we can leverage technology in order to connect with people and not lose sight of people. I think that's what I'm missing the most in all of this is I want to be out there in the battlefield with people shoulder to shoulder, but being shoulder to shoulder with people right now is like the worst thing to do, like the opposite. Let me help you.
Just like licking your hand, putting on people's faces.
Please help.
Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah. I love it, man. I totally agree. I feel like it's obviously it's an unprecedented time for our generation, being that we haven't been through this type of stuff. So, I'm just with you, bro. I wanna use technology because I think it's been used, in my perspective, for the majority, for kind of just a waste to get you to waste your time on social media, to get you to the mantra, the stuff. But how cool if we could turn around and have this be a time to be able to use these tools that we have as tools and be able to reach people and communicate and share life and love. And I think it could be super profound to do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, who knows what this is going to set in motion for other people. Oh, yeah. I was even thinking about, a church like Church Home where they already had this whole infrastructure set up, and they're probably sitting there going see, this is why we built this, for times like this where nobody has to be in the dark. But yeah, and just for the record, for anybody watching this in 50 years, I want you to know we're good. Our morale's high.
Right.
I think about what C.S. Lewis once said during the atomic bomb era, when nobody knew, people thought Hitler was going to take over the world or people were just going to blow each other up. And he was like, well, if the atomic bomb comes, let's have them find us, praying and laughing and going on with our lives, basically.
Wow.
And, you know, it's good to be mindful about the future, but at the same time, you know, if this is how it goes, I want people to find me living like I would any other day.
Yeah, man. I agree, and I think like saying the same thing is the Bible talks about, like, basically like, why are you worrying about tomorrow? Like, don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
Like, today has there's everything you need for today, and I think that's really hard, but I just so agree with you, man.
Yeah, that's good, man.
Anyways, dude, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, me too, man. This is great.